Hello, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching Relationship Real Talk. Today is May 13th, and we are on our third episode, focusing on the things that you should stop doing that could possibly destroy your relationship. According to Dr. John Gottman, there are four destructive patterns of communication that can cause serious damage to your relationship, and he calls them the four horsemen of apocalypse. Now, last week we talked about defensiveness, but today we're going to focus on the most destructive of the four horsemen, which is contempt. And I have joining me my colleague, Dr. Kelly Blasko. How are you, Dr. Blasko?
Good. Thanks, Kelly. Glad to be here again to talk about contempt, which is, like you said, one of the most destructive communications that couples face.
Yeah, so we know that contempt erodes the bond that holds couples together securely, and it can be very, very toxic. In fact, in Dr. Gottman's research, he found that when contempt has hijacked a couple's communication, it's the biggest predictor of divorce or separation, like I mentioned before. And so I want us to kind of like get into the weeds here, Dr. Blasko. What exactly is contempt?
Yes. So contempt is treating others with disrespect and even to the point of cruelty. I can't say that word very well, but it really conveys disgust and superiority. And it's like saying my opinion counts more than yours. So I think, let me describe some ways that you might notice that it's happening. And I know for myself, I can be as contemptuous as well. So it's not necessarily, it's very common in relationships. So one of the ways is if you are mocking with sarcasm or your partner's doing that. Talking in a condescending way, like you don't know how to do this. And sometimes hostile humor or doing humor that you know will hurt your partner. Could be name calling, some type of a negative name rather than a affectionate name, kind of mimicking sarcastically. And probably the most obvious is your body language, like the eye roll or the sneering kind of look when your partner talks. So it's really can be any of these, but I think people know it when they do feel like they're being disrespected or put down in some way.
You know, you mentioned the body language. Does the silent treatment, is that included? Is that lumped in there with that?
It could be in if it's that it might feel like, oh, you're not important enough to listen to. And so the silent treatment could, especially if you know that your partner is upset or wants to talk about something and you just kind of ignore them. So again, that's like, you're not important. And it's very disrespectful. And also the person who gives the silent treatment often has control of what's going on because they can, if they're not talking, nothing can happen really in terms of dialogue.
So I can see how contempt could be, or as the research shows, the most dangerous or destructive pattern because it's making your partner or your partner making you feel that they're inferior because of who they are, not because of something that they did or a behavior, but it's like at the core of them. And that could be really damaging, especially when you're doing that towards someone or someone's doing that towards you, that you have that bond or that connection with. It really could erode, I would think, Dr. Blasko, at the trust that those two have developed, towards each other. Our audience primarily is the military community. This is Military OneSource's platform. I want us to talk a little about some military specific scenarios, and something that comes to mind that there's three areas, but the first one that I want us to talk about is about unemployment and military spouses that are not employed. And that could be due to a variety of reasons, but we're going to say PCS. What do you see, Dr. Blasko, when it comes to contemptuous partners around unemployment of spouses and feeling inferior?
Well, I think one thing when a spouse is not able to be or be employed or something like that, they can feel unworthy. And so the other spouse could really point that out. You really are unworthy because you can't have a job, or I'm better than you because my career is more important. So all of that can really erode their partner's self-esteem. So by constantly putting it out or not supporting them and how to maybe support them in having a job or feeling more worthy, it really can be a separation point. And it's really unfortunate because both it's a partnership. So however you decide to do that together as opposed to one person being better than another.
Dr. Blasko, I apologize, I was framing that, but Wendy here in the chat really makes a good point, is that it may seem like that person is making you feel that way, but essentially we are responsible for our own feelings. I think the key thing in contemptuous situations is that if that partner that is the contemptor, I'm not sure if that's the right word, that they're the one that essentially kind of is at fault, I guess, for the behavior, even though you might be feeling a certain way about it. Because again, Wendy, you're right. You're spot on. We do have to own and be responsible for our feelings. But I think it's the action of the partner that's being contemptuous that that could be making the situation really challenging for the couple to try to navigate.
Yeah, for example, if a partner is being contemptuous and attacking someone's character or some very vulnerable part about them that they had maybe originally in their relationship, that can be a real trigger because it is a very vulnerable part and a private maybe that's just between the two of them. So when you get down to that core, that's where it starts eroding the bond. And so, but there are ways to help with contemptuousness, and we'll go into that, but it definitely, like Kelly was saying, it really is about attacking someone's character or values or just who they are as a person. But we also have to remember that you were attracted to this partner or spouse, so you may not have always been contemptuous.
Another military specific scenario that comes to mind, Dr. Blasko, is having a difference in belief systems. And so, if you are the service member, you might have a really strong belief in the military values, in the commitment of, what our mission is in the military. And the spouse may not necessarily have that same kind of gump or, appreciation. I'm not sure what the right word is. Value around the military culture. And I could really see how that could really cause some difficulties for couples.
It does. And particularly, I see it with promotions kind of thing, like the expectation may be right or wrong that the wife will play a certain role in their husband's or partner's career. And it's not always easy for them to know what is the value to them. Or like you're saying, like there is a commitment working all the time, perhaps, and having less time for the spouse. So it's just this back and forth, and it can be just really separating. No one's more important than the other, and that's what makes, I think, a partnership and a relationship is to really respect the values of the other and not necessarily right and so black and white, so right and wrong.
Dr. Blasko, there's one other scenario that I want us to think about, but I want to put a pin in that and really kind of shift here to talk about, well, how does this even develop? Like you said, a few minutes ago, at some point, things were good. You and the partner, you and your spouse connected in some kind of way. So how does a contemptuous communication pattern even develop for a couple?
Well, it's the kind of thing that kind of simmering through the relationship. So I'm going to pick sort of a simple one, but it's not necessarily, a lot of people experience this is, maybe one person is more punctual than the other. And so, early on in the relationship, it's not too bad. Maybe it's ignored a bit. And, but as your life grows together, other things come in. Maybe you have children, career commitments, and that just keeps building and it's never discussed. So it could be like, finally, kind of like, geez, you're always late, or, why aren't you on time? Or you're too anal about the time, and so on. So that kind of thing really grows over time. It's like resentment.
Let's do a role play of the time thing, because I think that will really help drive home the point for our viewers. So the scenario, guys, is that, and if you haven't picked it up yet, and I don't know if our names flash across the screen, but I'm Kelly Smith. Dr. Blasko is Dr. Kelly Blasko, so we're both Kellys. So I and Dr. Blasko have a different sense of time. I like to be punctual, but I'm not always on, and Dr. Blasko is not always on time. And we've had a plan to go to an important event, and one of us is late. So we're gonna start here. So action. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I came late. I was just not tracking time, and I'm so sorry.
I mean, what else is new, Kelly? I mean, I learned to tell time when I was in kindergarten, but it seems like clearly you missed that class.
What? What are you talking about? So I feel attacked.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I know how to tell time, so anyway, you see that kind of that role play, it starts that back and forth. Then I'm going to yell, or not necessarily yell, but I'm going to push back at her and vice versa. And then we get nowhere. Right, Kelly?
Yeah. I mean, I in looking through this, like, I didn't necessarily have to say or be a smart aleck about it and saying, I learned that back in kindergarten. Like, clearly all of us know how to tell time. I think I could have been more compassionate towards you, but still, advocating for myself and saying, hey, would you please respect, the fact that I would love to be on time, as opposed to being a smart ass about it. So that's just one scenario.
Yeah. And we could do the other scenario. We had two scenarios. We can do another one that's similar to this, but we actually did it kind of a little different last week. So I'll set the state. So I'm at home. Kelly's coming home after work and starts playing a video game as soon as she comes in the door. And I've been at home all day taking care of two toddlers, and it's dinner time and I need some help. So I'll start. Kelly's busy there doing the thing. Could you help me with these kids? Would you stop acting like a child and help me with our children? Obviously, playing game is more important to you. Stop it.
I probably wouldn't be laughing if it was for real.
No, you wouldn't be laughing, but we can see it so easily when other people are doing it, but we're doing it, we get caught up in it. And so that's the thing to think about it. When do you recognize it, either in yourself or your partner? So I think it's time now to talk about how to kind of overcome it. What do you think?
Yeah, let's talk about how to work through it. And I can give a personal story once you lay down the foundation, Dr. Blasko.
Okay, I got my notes here. Okay. So the anecdote or what can help with this is building a bond of fondness and admiration. So you notice with contempt, I'm really like, we're causing people to separate. And we're not highlighting what is really something that we really love about our partner or spouse. So when contempt is arising more and more, or you feel on the defensive, that's a really good sign that you're losing your connection and you're losing your appreciation for each other. So one of the first steps is to really think about what you love and like about your partner. So there's some simple ways to do that, but it's really going to take some time. Like in the short term, one of the things is to be able to state your needs without saying you're doing this to me. And then the second one is to build some rituals of appreciation. And actually, I'd like to turn to Kelly. She said she has a good example.
Yeah. So in this pandemic, and as we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, my husband and I, we've been at home, in the home, with our children all day, every day for the most part. And it's just a lot of time together, more time than sometimes I would want to be together. And so the smallest things would start to drive me crazy, whether it's how um, my husband would fold the towels, whether he would take out the trash, whether it's me having to lift the weight of, taking care of the children most of the time or cooking the meals. And these are things that couples deal with, often, but it's my response to him when he tried to help. And so I would make like a smart remark, or if the towels were folded some funky way in the closet, I would like dramatically take all the towels out and then like refold them in front of him, huffing and puffing. And I wouldn't say anything to him, but just that behavior would make him feel like a certain way. And that was my intent behind it. And so at a certain point, when we realized that we were going to be in this space with the pandemic for a while in the same home, if we want to live together, if we want to be able to make things work and not be at each other's throat all the time, that we had to be a bit more compassionate towards each other, i.e. I had to be more compassionate towards him, and just kind of letting go of things. And also in that, I had to just kind of say and acknowledge, well, thank you for doing that, or thank you for helping. Or if there's something I didn't really want the help with, then I would say, thank you for doing it. Next time, I don't mind doing it myself, or just going to him in love. And I know that sounds like really frou-frou, and but that really was it. And then also something else that really helped is when the kids are down, or when we just have time to ourselves, is to really thank each other for providing support to each other. And so it was like creating like a ritual of appreciation for each other, because it's like we're in this together. So we've, granted, you're going to do things that are going to push my buttons, that are going to piss me off. I might make a smart comment to you, but like, if we do that, because I still do it this day, then to go back to that person, go back to him and say, hey, I'm sorry, or I reacted this way because X, Y, and Z was really bothering me. It had nothing to do with you. And so doing that really has helped to repair our relationship over these last, 15, 16 months. And it's something that I have to consciously try to work on to do, so that I'm not being contemptuous towards him all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Kelly, because when couples come to see me, usually by the time they come to see me, they are in a place where contempt is alive and well. And one of the first things I really start out with is trying to build that kind of bond back a little bit. And one of the first things is to ask, how did they meet, and what did they like about each other? What things attracted them to each other? Even reminiscing about that can start building that kind of, oh yeah, that was something. I may not like it as much now, but I really did like that about you. And the other thing, when people talk about quality time, I
Yeah.
like to be a little bit more explicit about what to do with that. And like Kelly was saying, a ritual, like even a ritual where each day or at a time of the day where you text your partner something funny or kind, something that would lift their spirit or be connected to you. Or like Kelly was saying, every day say something that you appreciate about your partner to them. And also to have, verbal and emotional connection or physical connection in a very affectionate way, if it's appropriate, to be able to make that connection as well. It's just like a rekindling, I like to think of it. And it's gotten lost, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So that's what I like to start with.
Rekindling, that's what it is. That's just, that resonates with me, Dr. Blasko, because I think about us taking time to reflect on, we like to say BK before kids, even though things are great with kids, but that taking time just to be in that space together and to talk about that, or to go to like our favorite restaurant together, to cook our favorite meal together, or even just have a conversation in the bed together about times before, really helps to strengthen and rekindle our relationship. Now, when things are like rocky, we don't want to do that. But when we're in a good space, sometimes it requires us to make time for that. And when we're, not in a good space and we're, on our separate paths for that day or for that night, then I personally, and again, that goes back to what Wendy says, is that we're responsible for our own feelings. I have to kind of sit with myself and say, okay, Kelly, what was that about? You can extend the olive branch, take some responsibility for those reactions. So it's a work in progress. It takes practice.
Yeah, and I think as we talked last week also is to, if someone's being contemptuous, in that scenario with the video game where she was ignoring me and then I yelled, like it would be very appropriate for Kelly to say to me, I'm a little worried about you that this is going on, and I really didn't mean that, but maybe we should, uh, you know, talk about it, or even take a break if it starts getting to be a volley between each other. So just these skills of kind of like a reset, and like I do really think it is a rekindling. And there's another ritual that is good for couples as well as your family, is to have a set time to have dinner, a meal together. It doesn't have to be dinner. In fact, some folks really enjoy breakfast together, or having coffee in bed, one person making the coffee for the other, maybe the person that wakes up first or something, or is more awake first, let's put it that way. But those just simple things are just like comforting. So but in each you as a couple can kind of do problem solving around, like, what is that special thing that you want to do to be able to appreciate each other more.
Yeah, and Sharon makes a good point here in the chat that, it shows you care, that you're concerned about their feelings and not just your own. And I can't agree more. Something that my husband said to me the other day when I apologized for something that I said was, he was like, I really appreciate you saying that. And hearing him say that, I just felt like all the warm and fuzzies, like, okay, everything is okay, because he feels like he is heard, or that he's acknowledged, his feelings are acknowledged. And so that's big, to me. And that just starts to plant the seed for having better communication and creating a space where it's safe to have those conversations. So
the nice thing is you feel better. In fact, I wanted to mention in the beginning is Dr. Gottman has actually done research that contempt actually affects your health. People with that have contempt in their relationship can get more colds, more just negative things like poor mental health, all kinds of things. So it's not just a thing in a communication, but if you're not feeling well, that can even contribute more to the situation. So it's really important for your overall well-being. Kelly?
I think I was on mute there for a second. Sorry. I was thinking that it takes a lot of energy to keep up that negative, condescending kind of behavior. So, but when you're angry, sometimes you can keep it going for a while, but it does take up that energy, I think, So, Dr.
Yeah.
Blasko, any last nuggets to leave with our viewers today?
Yeah, just like you said, try to rekindle your relationship and have some fun with it. It's going to be great if you do it. So, and also, although it's not great to be contempt, like don't beat yourself up on it. If you are, it can be, you can change it. So, I think that's the important thing.
I'm living proof you can change it. It takes practice. So, just as learning any new task takes practice, learn how to be an effective communicator with your partner. And in all your relationships really takes time and focus. But learning how to communicate effectively in your relationship, you will be setting the foundation upon which you can have a strong and thriving partnership. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will be here next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about, Dr. Blasko, remind me, which horsemen are we talking about next week?
I can't remember whether it's stonewalling or criticism.
There's two more, guys. I can't remember which one it is. Regardless, we hope to see you here next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day.
Thank you.